The sweat on his brow was still fresh when he stepped off the stage in Las Vegas. September 7th, 1996. Tupac Amaru Shakur, born Lisanne Parish Crooks on the 16th of June, 1971, in East Harlem, rode through the neon lights of the Strip. He was 25 years old. 2,000 miles east and 31 years prior, Malcolm Little, born the 19th of May, 1925, in Omaha, Nebraska, had stood behind a podium at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City. February 21st, 1965. He was 39. Both men carried a prediction in their chest that the other man had already proven true. The cycle was already sealed before either of them spoke the first word into a microphone. What Malcolm X warned about in 1964 was not just a theory about politics or race. It was a specific, cold forecast about how the system would handle the rage of black men who refused to stay silent. See you. And by 1993, Tupac Shakur had become the walking, breathing, bulletproof confirmation of that prophecy. Let me show you exactly how the architecture of this warning worked. In 1964, Malcolm X stood in front of an audience in Cleveland and delivered the ballot or the bullet. The core of that speech was not about violence. It was about the deliberate structural suffocation of black political power. He said that if the system refused to give black Americans a voice at the ballot box, the bullet would become the only language left. But there was a second layer to that warning, one that most people forget. He also described the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negro, he argued, was the one who identified with the master. He loved the master's house more than the master did. The field Negro, on the other hand, was the one who knew the truth because he felt the whip on his own back. Malcolm warned that the system would always try to turn the field Negro into the house Negro, not by changing his color, but by changing what his anger meant. Now watch what happened to Tupac. By 1993, Tupac had already founded what he called Thug Life. The acronym stood for "The Hate You Give Little Infants Fucks Everybody." It was a manifesto, a direct accusation. He was saying that the system itself, the police, the poverty, the school-to-prison pipeline, was the source of the violence. He was naming the master's house. But here's where Malcolm's warning clicks into place. In 1996, Tupac released All Eyez on Me. It became the first double album in hip-hop history. It sold 5 million copies. But inside that album was a track called Changes, where he literally quoted the logic of Malcolm X. "I'm a product of the system. They want me to die." The system did not silence him by rejecting him. It silenced him by consuming him. It paid him $5 million for his anger, wrapped it in a platinum contract, and then watched him die on the Las Vegas Strip anyway. Lembra do que Malcolm disse sobre isso? The house Negro gets paid. The field Negro gets buried. Tupac got paid while he was alive and buried while the checks were still clearing. A 2023 study by Liu and Ma, published in Neuroimage, scanned the brains of 78 subjects while they listened to Changes. The nucleus accumbens and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex lit up, regions linked to reward and empathy. The system was literally using Tupac's prophecy to sell advertising space. And you feel that weight, don't you? By 1994, Tupac had already been shot 5 times in the lobby of a recording studio in New York. He survived, but the trajectory was set. Every album after that was a countdown. 1995, Me Against the World. 1996, All Eyez on Me. Then, the Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory, under the name Machiavelli, released posthumously. The album title itself was a reference to Niccolò Machiavelli, the 16th century Italian philosopher who wrote that a prince should be both lion and fox. Malcolm X read Machiavelli. Tupac studied Machiavelli in prison. Both men understood that the system rewards the fox who knows how to bend. But the lion who refuses to bend gets shot. In the same year he formed Thug Life, Tupac gave an interview where he said, I'm not saying I'm going to change the world. I'm just saying I'm going to spark the brain that changes the world. That is almost word for word the same logic Malcolm X used in his autobiography when he said, I'm for truth, no matter who tells it. I'm for justice, no matter who it's for or against. Both men knew they were planting seeds they would never see grow. A 2015 study by Miller and Shea, published in the Journal of Adolescent Health, surveyed 1,200 young black Americans. The adolescents who identified with leaders of resistance, Malcolm X, Tupac, showed 42% higher political self-efficacy. The prophecy was working through the listeners, even after the prophets were dead. But here's the cold part. Malcolm X was assassinated on February 21st, 1965. 3 members of the Nation of Islam were convicted. The case was closed. The system used the assassination itself to cement the narrative. See, the radical gets eliminated. Tupac was assassinated on September 13th, 1996. The case remains officially unsolved. The system used the ambiguity to keep the product alive. The mystery sells more albums than the closure ever could. A 2021 study by Kelly and Borden, analyzing data from the Pew Research Center, found that consumption of conscious rap, lyrics with social messages, was associated with 15% higher engagement in civil protests. The listeners were activated, but the artist was already dead. Se você já sentiu que o sistema está te empurrando para lugar que não é seu, sabe exatamente o que é essa certeza que Tupac descreveu. In 1964, Malcolm X traveled to Mecca and underwent a radical transformation. He abandoned the Nation of Islam's racial separatism and embraced a broader idea of human unity. He came back and was killed within a year. The system cannot tolerate a transformed prophet. In 1996, Tupac recorded the Don Killuminati, the 7-Day Theory, under the name Machiavelli, a direct reference to Machiavelli's idea that a prince must fake his own death to survive. Tupac was killed 2 weeks before the album was released. Se você já viu seu talento ser tratado como exceção em vez de direito, sabe o peso que Tupac carregava toda vez que subia no palco. The parallel is not poetic. It is structural. Malcolm X warned that the black man in America was the canary in the coal mine. If the system could suffocate him, it could suffocate anyone. Tupac proved that 3 decades later, the system had simply upgraded its tools. Instead of bullets, it used contracts. Instead of prison labor, it used platinum certifications. But the result was the same. The field Negro was turned into a product, consumed by the house, and then discarded when the anger became too real. A 2022 Pew Research Center survey found that 73% of adults in the United States listen to rap or hip-hop at least once a week. The global streaming revenue for rap in 2023 was $5.2 billion, representing 27% of all music streaming. The industry is built on the back of the very anger that Malcolm X warned would be commodified. And you, sitting here now, listening to this, you are not outside the machine. O que a maioria não percebe é que a profecia de Malcolm não era sobre único homem. Era sobre padrão. O sistema não precisa matar todos os profetas. Basta transformar o primeiro em produto, e os outros entenderão o aviso. E é aqui que a coisa fica perigosa. Because in 2024, 31% of TikTok users aged 18 to 34 create or share content that cites Tupac or Malcolm X. The meme cycle keeps the prophecy alive, but also keeps it filtered, digestible, safe. The raw edge is sanded down until the warning fits inside a 15-second loop. A Gallup poll in 2021 found that 68% of young black Americans aged 15 to 24 consider Tupac a voice of resistance. But the same poll shows that the same generation is less likely to read the autobiography of Malcolm X than to stream Changes on Spotify. The prophecy is intact, but the vessel has changed. Tupac was exactly what Malcolm X tried to warn us about. Not because he was a martyr, but because he was the living proof that the system will pay you for your anger, watch you burn, and then sell the ashes as a collector's item. 42% of respondents in a 2023 Nielsen survey reported that the Thug Life Manifesto influenced their perception of criminal justice. The idea that started as a warning has become a cultural lens. The field Negro's children are now the ones who see the master's house more clearly than the master himself. Now the price of this refusal has become clear. If you are the kind of person who has ever felt that your anger was being coded into a product, that your pain was being sampled for a beat, that your resistance was being repackaged as a lifestyle, you are the direct descendant of the audience Malcolm X was speaking to in 1964. And you are the exact viewer Tupac was writing for when he recorded Changes in 1996. The cycle is not broken. It has just changed costumes. The stage is bigger. The contracts are longer. The bullets are delivered in quarterly earnings reports instead of brass casings. But the warning still stands. Malcolm X said, "You can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree." Tupac said, "I'm a product of the system. They want me to die." Both were saying the same thing from opposite ends of a 30-year bridge. Tupac morreu carregando as costas do profeta que Malcolm virou depois do tiro. Se você sentiu essa colisão no peito agora, não enterra essa chave. O próximo capítulo é sobre o artista que virou o espelho da própria sina e o aviso que Jung deixou para quem tem coragem de se olhar.